to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the young adult fantasy novel Firian Rising, and this is English Nerd. So today I wanted to talk to you about what Star Wars taught me about writing. Now before I get started, if my voice sounds a little bit weird, that is because I just had the first full week of school and I don't know if it's allergies or a cold, but I definitely have something going on. Thank you, school. No, it's actually been pretty good, but it's taken a bit of a toll. So, without further ado, let's talk about what Star Wars taught me about writing, both good and bad, things to do and things not to do. I decided to talk about Star Wars today because the D23 Disney Star Wars conference, or I guess just the Disney conference, just ended, and they dropped a new teaser trailer, which is very interesting if you haven't seen it, for Rise of Skywalker. So check it out, and I guess now without further ado, let's get started. Okay, first thing that Star Wars taught me about writing is that people are still not tired of the hero's journey. Hero's journey is a type of plot structure. So essentially, I'm going to have some visual aids here, if you couldn't tell with my tauntaun. Here, I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd. I'm a lot of a Star Wars nerd myself. So, Hero's Journey is basically where you have a character who starts out in his normal world. Something happens to take him into a new place or a new way of being. So, you know, Luke finds out about the Force and learns all about that. He's thrust into this world that is not only magical but also against the Empire. So in the hero's journey, you have the average person who goes from the normal world to an extraordinary world through various trials. They meet allies and enemies, and they eventually return to the world that they know with whatever they've gained, so the knowledge or the riches or what have you. So it's a very traditional way of telling a story. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to come up with very many examples of stories that don't follow this in one form or another. Even rom-coms, for instance, don't have people flying around the galaxy or actually going literally from a normal world to an extraordinary world like Narnia or something. But maybe the person who works at the coffee shop locks eyes with that person across the way, and suddenly the world is changed. That's their extraordinary world that now they must learn from and take back what they've learned or gained. So Hero's Journey still resonates with people. It's really how you tell a hero's journey story that can set it apart from others. You don't want to just copy for the sake of copying, but you also don't want to try to be original just for the sake of trying to be original. So my story doesn't follow the hero's journey tropes very closely or anything, but I still do love a good hero's journey story. So that's one thing that I have, if not learned, then it's been solidified in me because of Star Wars. Now, number 2, the key to telling a good story of any kind, but particularly one that uses a lot of well-known tropes, is that you have to include characters that are relatable. Now, trigger warning, I am going to talk about the prequels here. I know we've all gone through years of therapy trying to forget that episodes 1, 2, and even 3 existed. Particularly 1 and 2. I feel like 3 had some redeeming qualities at least, but 1 and 2 are just the worst possible train wrecks. So I was talking about relatable characters. Sorry, the haze in my head. You need relatable characters to guide you through, especially in fantasy and sci-fi where things get kind of weird. You need a character that's going to learn along with you and kind of be your gateway to all the unusual things that are happening. Tolkien does this with the Hobbits, even in Six of Crows, which I read this summer, where all the characters are very deeply entrenched in their world. The what should have been the first chapter. The first chapter is not very good. The second chapter is where everything starts. But the second chapter, we have a character who is that gateway for us. She is the relatable one, the most relatable probably, and she's trying to think through, okay, what are these characters going to do? And she kind of introduces us to everybody else and the world. The prequels failed to do this in a lot of ways. If you think back, I know, but think back to episode 1. Who is the relatable character that we're supposed to care about, who lets us know what's going on? I mean, it's not the insanely dressed up Queen Amidala, who's utterly emotionless and doesn't really do much of anything. I tried to find a picture. I have a bunch of these postcards, and I tried to find a picture of Qui-Gon Jinn, and they didn't even have one. But that's okay. It's not this kid, because he only shows up halfway through the movie, and there are lots of other reasons why it's just not this kid. We don't really care about him. He's not somebody that we particularly relate to. Or if we do, then it's too late in the game for him to have made enough of an impact in the movie. So instead we get all of these very stoic, emotionless characters who already know what's going on, moving through the plot. So we don't know who to care about, we don't care about them. People are either innocuous or actively annoying. And that's obviously not what you want. You want characters that you can care about, people that you can relate to. You can relate to their struggles, you can learn from them, through them, what's going on. Luke is our most relatable character in that way. He at least teaches us, he asks the questions that we have about the Force, that sort of thing. But we can also relate to Princess Leia. We know what's at stake for her, for instance. Han Solo, my personal favorite, is not stoic or actively annoying. In fact, he is the opposite of those things. So we need characters that are relatable. One of the things that Star Wars in particular, more than any other book or movie series that I can think of, taught me, is that things or places can be characters too. So, I mean, I have my Tauntaun here. He's not exactly a character, but he's my buddy for this video. If I think about the prequels, and I try not to do that often, there aren't any new characters or ones that are particular to the prequels that I care about any more than I care about the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon is just a ship, right? And it is most definitely a character. In Force Awakens, when it looked like they were going to destroy the Millennium Falcon, I was horrified. I thought, no, you can't hurt the Millennium Falcon. It's one of my favorite characters, and happily, the Falcon makes it out of that movie in one piece, and I was very, very glad. But not only things can be characters, but also places can be characters. You think about all the locations in Star Wars. You have Tatooine and Endor and Hoth and these different places that are so near and dear to people's hearts. In a lot of movies, a lot of books, New York City, for instance, is a popular one. New York is a character. So don't downplay the fact that things and places can also be characters in your story that people really do care about. Okay, number 4 is that you should let things get bad for your main characters before they get better. I know that some writers want to protect their characters. They love them so much. I get that. But you need to let things get bad for them. You need for them to lose. You need for them to be captured or hurt or broken up with or lost or something, so that the victory is even better. If nothing bad happens to your main characters, then it seems like there's very little at stake, and the audience will stop caring as much. And again, the victory just won't be as sweet. I realized after I watched Star Wars for the first time, that was the kind of story that I at least very much preferred, when things got really, really bad for the main characters before they got better. So I've taken a leaf from that book, and I intend to do something like that in my story. We'll see if I can pull it off. I think I can. Just take some doing, take some work, but let things get bad for them. Let things go wrong, let them be wrong, and then, if you want to, you can turn things around. In Star Wars, of course, things get terrible. I'm thinking about the original series now. In Return of the Jedi, Luke is on the ship with the Emperor and Darth Vader, and the Emperor is just playing Luke and Vader against each other, and Luke is looking out the window at all of the Empire troops killing his friends, and it just looks absolutely bleak. How in the world could this end up being good? And I think that that's just good storytelling. So I've taken that as a lesson from Star Wars ever since then. The number 5, I learned from Star Wars that stories can be life-changingly powerful. Now, we're ignoring the prequels, of course. We're gonna just shove those in the back burner forever. I'm talking about the originals. When I first saw the original trilogy, it was the first time that I had been just bowled over by a story. And I think that's true of a lot of people. It's super cliche. This is true of so many people, but it was the first time I really saw what a story could do. And I thought that nothing could top it. And nothing did until Lord of the Rings came around and changed that. And I was glad I found out that there is more than one kind of story that could have that effect on me. But really, it's that feeling of triumph and caring about characters, wanting to follow them, feeling their victories and their defeats. I want to be able to create that experience for somebody else. And so I've studied stories, I teach stories, I write stories, and that stories are my life now. And one of the very first times that I had the experience of how powerful a story could be was when I saw Star Wars. Again, I know it's cliche, but it is what it is. I mean, that would be the case whether or not it was a big phenomenon. I would just be unpopular if it were not a big phenomenon. So that's it. I know this has been kind of a longer video. Hopefully you've stuck with me to the end. Make sure to like this video if you like it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you on Monday. Bye.